Hey guys, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. Going to read through the full article here. There's a link in the description. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe. Share the video as you see fit. I will let you know that I'm quite slow in reporting on this one. I've had this one ready to make a video of. I've just been a little bit slow. This is dated November the 28th, so it's a few weeks old. 5 Connecticut police officers have been charged after a black man has been left paralyzed following a ride in a police van. So we're going to watch a video of the incident in question. It's quite harrowing, so I'll tell you what, let's get straight to the video.
Officers on paid leave. There is video, and we have to warn you, it is very tough to watch. Randy Cox is a criminal suspect in handcuffs. He was incapacitated when police dragged him from the back of a transport van. Now, police did not use a seatbelt on Mr. Cox, so he was severely injured when the officer driving made a very sudden stop. National correspondent Jerika Duncan is tracking this investigation, and again, this video is disturbing.
Just hold up, okay?
What's up? Randy Cox was at a block party when New Haven police arrived in response to a weapons complaint. Officers arrested Cox, who they say is an ex-felon and was carrying a firearm illegally. As they were transporting him to jail, authorities say Officer Oscar Diaz was speeding and came to a sudden stop to avoid an accident. As a result, Cox's head is slammed against the back of the van, which had no seatbelt.
I can't hear you.
Despite Cox's repeated calls for help, it took the officer almost 4 minutes to check on him.
Can you move at all?
I can't move.
Before calling an ambulance to meet him at the police station. When the van arrived, several other officers were waiting and began berating Cox to get out.
Move your leg. Sit up.
Why not listening, bro?
Sit up.
I can't move.
You're not even trying.
About 3 minutes later, they dragged Cox feet first out of the van.
What's going on? Huh?
You ain't cracking. You just drank too much.
Before officers forcefully hoisted him into a wheelchair. Cox is processed and dragged into a holding cell about 10 minutes after the van arrived at the station.
He's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine?
He was placed on the floor where an officer shackled his legs, but he couldn't move as he was paralyzed from the chest down.
Mr. Cox was mistreated. He should have received medical attention immediately. We can't defend anything that was released.
Now, the 5 officers involved are on paid leave pending an investigation. This morning, Cox remains hospitalized in intensive care. Attorney Ben Crump is representing Cox's family as they pursue damages against the city.
We want criminal accountability for those officers, but we also want to see policy changes.
Cox's sister, LaToya Boomer, says she just couldn't finish watching the footage of how officers treated her brother.
It made me sick to my stomach. To treat somebody like that, at what point in time do you believe someone that's saying, I think my neck is broke?
Oh. Well, the mayor's up.
It's absolutely terrible, isn't it? Like, if you watch the footage and you see him slamming his head, well, you know, he didn't do it, but it happened. The driver slammed the brakes on. He jolts forward. Naturally, he's not in any position to defend himself. His hands are tied, handcuffed behind his back. Head first into the steel plate of the panel van. I mean, like, anyone watching that instinctively knows that it's a very severe injury. He's remarkably calm. That's what strikes me. You know, he's saying that he can't move, but he's calm. Maybe that's a physical reaction happening there, the adrenaline or such, whatever it happens to be, but he's incredibly calm. And then we just see the ongoing mistreatment. One of the female police officers, is it relevant that I mention that she's a female? Don't know. But one of the female police officers says, oh, he's all right. No, he's not all right. He's literally paralyzed from the chest down. And it is the police's fault, in my estimation. You know, we see that there are seat belts on the bench to restrain prisoners, they've not been used. You know, the prisoners can't apply the seatbelts themselves when they're handcuffed. Yeah, this is a procedural failure on many levels. And, I mean, I'm sure we all know for a fact the police get lied to all day long. So it's normal for them to think that they're being lied to. That's kind of normal. But I don't know, he seems pretty paralyzed to me. He's got, you know, no movement in his legs. He's saying that he can't move. He's got no movement whatsoever. And they're just dragging him, physically dragging him. Why do they need to do that? So we're going to go through the article in a little bit more detail. 5 Connecticut police officers were charged with misdemeanors on Monday. Again, this is a few weeks back. Over their treatment of a black man, his name Randy Cox, after he was paralyzed from the chest down in the back of a police van. Randy Cox, 36 years of age, was being driven to a New Haven police station June the 19th for processing on a weapons charge, when the driver braked hard, apparently to avoid a collision, which caused Randy Cox to fly headfirst into the wall of the van. The incident was caught on video. As the victim, Randy Cox pleaded for help, saying that he couldn't move, some of the officers mocked him and accused him of being drunk, accused him of faking his injuries. Then the officers dragged him by his feet from the van and placed him in a holding cell prior to his eventual transfer to a hospital. The 5 New Haven police officers have been charged with second-degree reckless endangerment and cruelty to persons. The officers were identified as Officer Oscar Diaz, Officer Ronald Presley, Officer Jocelyn Lavendier, Officer Luis Rivera, and Sergeant Betsy Seguy. All have been on administrative leave since last summer. I'm just going to interject on the article. I normally support the officers, generally. They're doing a very difficult job. But, I mean, this is a pretty ugly situation. And they do show a lack of care. I mean, how else can you classify it? They show a lack of care. And I've got to say, in my experience on however many years I've been on this planet, I do have to say that there are cultures out there. There are cultures within many different spheres of life, but one of them are within companies, within organizations. Certain attitudes breed, certain attitudes are fostered, certain attitudes are supported, and contrary attitudes and approaches are poo-pooed. So to me, my take on it is that they have an attitude within at least this police department whereby they think a good proportion of their criminals that they're in contact with are full of shit and don't deserve too much credit. You know, that's the attitude. Now, I'm sure that attitude stems from some fair reasoning. There are reasons why such an attitude has developed. But, you know, overall, is that an attitude which is appropriate to have within a police department, within a taxpayer fund department? No, not really, is it? It's not. You know, it's because of situations like this, whereby a genuine victim that's in desperate need of medical care is being treated like a sack of potatoes. You know, it's for reasons like this that these guys do have to apply more care, more consideration. Not every second, not in every situation, but there are so many officers. One of them ought to have like a devil's advocate situation for one of the officers, you know, in a certain group. Hey guys, there are multiple officers here. Let's not all play bad cop. Let's one of us at least try to play good cop. Let's at least one of us try to pretend to do the right thing, you know. Let's not have it 5 against 1. Let's have it, you know, 4 against 2. So we saw the police chief speak, Carl Jacobson, and he says, you can't treat people poorly, period. You cannot treat people the way Mr. Cox was treated. So I support that. The officers turned themselves in to a state police barracks on Monday. Each were processed, posted a $25,000 bond, and they're due back in court December the 8th. The case has drawn outrage from civil rights advocates, along with comparisons to the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore, where a man who was also black died in 2015 after he suffered a spinal injury while handcuffed and shackled in a city police van. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like too dumb to me. You know, whoever designs these vans, when they design these vans, you know, of course, they convert normal vans into police vehicles. There's designers and engineers involved in that. That will be in liaison with police representatives. You know, at what point do they forget that, oh yeah, you know, if you put someone in the van and they're cuffed, they're handcuffed, and they don't have a seatbelt on, yeah, there's going to be a very big risk that they're going to be bouncing all around the van. That's not very safe. So let's do something about that. Let's make it very easy for the officers to apply a seatbelt. You know, let's ensure that happens every single time. You know, for the last decade, 15 years, maybe 20 years, whenever you go into a modern car, if you don't put the seatbelt in, if your passenger doesn't put the seatbelt in, we hear non-stop beep, beep, beep. You know, why don't they have such a procedure in the vans? You know, it seems a failing from the design point onwards, in my mind. So the article tells us that Randy Cox's family has filed a federal lawsuit against the city of New Haven and the 5 officers. The lawsuit alleges negligence, exceeding the speed limit, and failure to have proper restraints in the police van. Well, I got a clue for you. I got a clue for y'all. They're going to win. They're going to win. Like, how can they not win? They're going to win every single point, aren't they? They're going to have all of the evidence. We see the negligence. There's ample footage of the negligence. It's clear that he wasn't properly restrained. That part is like 100% apparent. And it's going to be pretty easy to show that the driver was exceeding the speed limit, no doubt. Four of the officers filed motions claiming immunity from the lawsuit, arguing that their actions in the case did not violate any clearly established legal standard. I don't know what that means. But it probably means that the officers think, hey, look, we were just following the police training. We were following our orders from the sergeant, no doubt. I bet those 4 officers didn't include the sergeant. So they're going to be passing the buck. Oh, we're not to blame. No, it's not our fault. It's somebody else's fault, not us. Yes, sure, this guy's paralyzed, but you know, that's their fault over there. Which in some degree is right. I mean, there's going to be plenty of people ultimately that are at fault. I don't think necessarily this should fall entirely on the officers. Entirely. Again, people follow the cultures that they're a part of, and there's going to be an existing culture within this police department which pervades these attitudes that we see here. Attitudes of negligence, you could say. Attitudes of neglect and uncaringness towards the people that they're in interaction with. These officers did not create that attitude. You know, they've just been morphed by it, you know. Anyway, that's all I have for now, so I'm going to wrap things up. Take care.